Hello everybody, and as I'm sure you've already heard, Deltarune tomorrow! Anyway, everybody including me is very excited for this. I will be playing Chapter 5 as soon as it drops. But the closing in release window of Chapter 5 coming up also means that I have to hurry up and get this video out. Now, because of this, that means I may miss some evidence here and there. And the editing will also be very minimal. So, with that being said, let's get right into the video. Now, as I'm sure you've already heard or seen, the Deltarune fans have been making truly some masterful memes. But anyway, I'm here to focus on one meme in particular, that being the Papyrus Knights meme. The meme goes that Papyrus in his absence would have to be the Roaring Knight. Now, many people just take this as a meme and leave it at that. But I'm here to say, what if it's true? What if Papyrus is the Roaring Knight? Well, sit tight, because I'm here to answer exactly why Papyrus is the Knight. Also, shout out to Ned and Atlas on Tumblr for this amazing piece of art. Now, let's get right into it. To start off, I want to point out that the Roaring Knight would of course be Papyrus' Dark World form, just like other Lightners change forms when entering a Dark World. So let's take a look at what parts of their designs can be used to prove that they are one and the same. Well, as you can see, they are actually have a bunch of different design similarities. First off, the Roaring Knight and Papyrus have similar body shapes. They both have a round chest. The two of them also don't seem to have an abdomen. Instead, both are only shown to have a spine. Now, in the region of the body where the lower abdomen should be, I feel it speaks for itself that Papyrus, being a skeleton, would only have a pelvis in this area. As for the Knight, we can't really see their real body because of the armor they're wearing, so technically, the Knight could have a lower abdomen, but there also isn't proof that it isn't just a pelvis. So honestly, you could make arguments for both sides. So for now, let's just say that the Knight, just like Papyrus, only has a pelvis in this area. Another thing of note is that the Knight, while having a similar body shape as Papyrus, also seems to exaggerate his proportions. For example, Papyrus' pelvis, with his pants on, looks round and smooth, with this section of the Knight's armor being in a triangular shape. Now as for the legs, the Knight has long, thin legs, just like Papyrus. The Knight does also seem to have bigger legs than Papyrus, but that could just be chalked up to them wearing armor over the body. As for the feet, well, we never see Papyrus' feet. I know, it's a sad day for the Papyrus Sims. But anyway, the Knight doesn't seem to have feet, instead having spiky ends at the tips of their legs, which seem to serve as feet. The one thing I will say that works against my theory is that Papyrus is wearing boots in his Undertale sprite. And both of his boots have toe boxes, which is the part of footwear that protects your toes. So it would make sense for him to have toes, since he has toe boxes on his boots. But then again, we never see his feet, so we don't know for sure. Maybe Papyrus just has spiky stubs as feet, just like the Knight's. It could be that he shoves or bends his stubs to fit into the toe box. That could explain why he is wearing his left boot in such a weird way, if you look at his sprite. Also, before you start yelling at me in the comments that skeletons don't have the ability to bend their bones, look at the Papyrus' legs and arms. Yeah. I mean, just like the Knight's limbs, he is bending his bones. So if you're telling me you can't do that, then Papyrus should probably go see a doctor about that. Now, for the shoulder pads. Like I said before, the Knight's design seems to take aspects of Papyrus' design and to then exaggerate them. For example, Papyrus' shoulder pads are round, which you could actually see the reason for it in his date outfit, because they are actually bastard balls that he uses as shoulder pads. The Knight, however, seems to have actual shoulder pads. Now it is pretty clear that the Knight is wearing armor, which hides its real identity. And the armor doesn't seem to be a actual part of its body, instead just being something it wears, like regular armor. An example of proof of this is when in Chapter 4, you can think about the Knight, and it's stated that the Knight's helmet can come off. So I do assume that the Knight its entire body is covered in armor, which it didn't take off. And as I'm sure you all know by now, clothing from the light world can transform into armor in the dark world. Just take a look at Tristan Bertley's dark and light world sprites. In their light world sprites, they are wearing regular clothes, and their dark world sprites, this clothing has been changed into armor, and both of their armor sets have shoulder pads. So it's not hard to imagine that someone wearing a battle body, which has shoulder pads, would probably get a siege set of armor, with bigger and sharper shoulder pads if they were to enter a dark world. Now as for the hands, the knight is shown having hands that each have 3 fingers, and each hand has a white circle and hole on their palms, which seems to indicate the connection between the Roaring Knight and Jaster. And Papyrus seems to be linked with Jaster, just as Sans. We never see Papyrus' hands, because he is always seen wearing gloves, but we at least see that he has a thumb, and most likely more fingers. We don't see how many he has, but I would argue that, aside from his thumb, he would probably have at least 2 fingers. So then, while it's not certain he does or doesn't have the correct number of fingers, there is, in my opinion, at least enough evidence to make an argument here. And now it's time to address the elephant in the room. You've probably all been streaming at me about the helmet. As you can see, the helmet seems a lot smaller than Papyrus' big head. So the first thing that I want to talk about is that, yeah, it does seem a little hard for Papyrus' big head to fit in there, but I mean, it could also just be dependent on the angle we're looking at from the knight's perspective, and technically we haven't seen Papyrus in Deltarune. However, most characters from Undertale that have shown up in Deltarune remain mostly the same, with minor changes to the designs. Now I will point out that Mettaton is probably not in the robot suit that Elf made for them in Undertale, since they haven't met in Deltarune. So that means that Mettaton would probably just be a ghost, and look completely different. But we haven't seen Mettaton yet, so I don't think that counts. Also, just chalking it up to, oh look, it's Papyrus, but he looks completely different, doesn't feel like something Toby would do, especially if he were to make Papyrus the knight, you know? Now, then, why would it work? So that... Why the helmet shape then? Well, it could be that Toby didn't want to make it too clear who the knight is. So he decided to make it a little different. I mean, I feel like there wouldn't be much mystery if the knight is just a one-to-one retrace of Papyrus, you know? Sprite in black and white. So that could be a reason. Why the helmet looks a little off. And for an in-game reason, the helmet not mentioned the head, well, it is shown that the knight can have to alter the shape of its body. So who's to say that Papyrus didn't just use his shape-shifting powers to change himself, give himself a cool helmet, though I admit, this does feel like a cheap argument. Now let's move on to the horns. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna be honest. I don't really have a solid argument here. So instead, because I don't believe this to be the case, that Papyrus just has horns now. But let's move to all the arguments real quickly. Because I don't have much evidence to work in my argument, so let's just move through them quickly. Part 1. Papyrus has horns or twigs. This is more of a joke than that the fans made to explain the horns. I personally don't think Toby would do this, because it feels cheap, just like I stated before. Option 2. Papyrus has a helmet and the helmet just has horns, because they look cool. Now, I mean, it could be that the horns are just meant as a red herring. But I don't like this argument, because it feels like the horns are such an important part of the design. So I don't think it's true, but I thought I'd still mention this. Option 3. Now, Papyrus is wearing the horned headband that Triss is used to wear. And because of that, he has horns in the dark world. Sorry. Honestly, I don't know how Papyrus would have gotten his hands on this headband. Maybe from Carol, but I don't know. It's like, yeah. I thought I'd mention it, but also I don't really like this one. Now, As for the next one, Papyrus is wearing the yeah. Sorry. Then for option 4, which is the craziest option, but I really like it, so yeah. Which would say that Des and Papyrus have fused into an amalgamate like in Undertale. I mean, friend in the Realse Darkness, which looks like a chat version of Androgyny. And the knight seems to be connected to friend, at least in some way. So, we could have something similar like in Undertale in Deltarune. Honestly, the knight definitely has similarities to amalgamates, being able to change forms and drooping. If this were to be true, it would be really dark. But it could work since the knight appeared just recently, and Papyrus and Chance also just recently moved to hometown. But this seems to have been gone for years, so how could she merge with Papyrus? Well, I believe this has to do with Papyrus working with Terrell. I will touch on that later, but yeah. This definitely is a wild theory. If it is true, it would explain the horns and weird behavior of the knight. And I think this would be a pretty dark, but also cruel choice if Toby were to go this route. Now that we've talked about the regular and base knight, or base knight sprite, however you want to call it, let's take a look at what the knight does when other actions, like moving. But in this sprite, when the knight streams at the start of the fight, you can pretty clearly see that a lot of skeletal ribs appearing, together with with a heart, core, organ, whatever this is in the middle. Now Papyrus, being a skeleton, would of course be able to, fit this description, having ribs. And another thing, as the knight streams, the bottom and top half of its mouth separate widely, and Papyrus is also capable of doing this. Not to this savage looking degree, but still. The weird organ core in the middle, the bone-like ribs, the wide mouth streaming. A lot of it streams skeleton or undead to me. Now, the knight's sword, when it summons it looks like a baseball bat in the first frame. So, as you can probably see where I'm going with this, a lot of people take this as, oh, Des used to have baseball bat, so she must be the knight. Now, I'd argue it could also just be a fun red hair reference to Ness from Earthbound. For those that don't know, there was a bit theory where MatPat suspected Sans to be the Ness. Now, in the end, it was a bit of a debacle. Anyway, Toby at the end, near MatPat's retirement, showed us this drawing, with Sans and Papyrus looking like Ness. Papyrus also looks like a Starman from Earthbound, so there are definitely some connections to Earthbound with Papyrus. This could just be a Papyrus Ness reference, or, if my amalgamate Papyrus theory is right, it could be a reference to how Des is also fused with Papyrus. Now that we're done talking about the sprites themselves, let's talk about the Roaring Knight and what Papyrus are both associated with. Because they are both heavily associated with snow and cold. We meet Papyrus in Snowden Forest. He lives in Snowden Town. He even states that he hates Hotland, a place filled with lava and heat. The Roaring Knight is shown to have a connection to cold as well. In the first encounter you fight the knight near a huge pile of snow. During the fight it's also mentioned that the wind blows strongly, specifically the north and east wind. And both of these winds are cold winds. And the knight seems to be working with the holidays, and in another cold motif. So with that said, this was the first part of the video, about the designs or other characters. Now, for both characters. Now, I sadly haven't had as much time to go in depth on these other parts, sadly, because I need to rush it to this video out. So, while I'm gonna try to cover all of these things, they will be, from now on, it'll be less detailed. So, let's get into the means, because to create a dark fountain, someone must be a lightner, and they need to be determined enough. Papyrus is both of these things. Judging that he and Sans moved to hometown, they have to be lightners, exist in the light world. Papyrus is a very determined person. He loves, in Undertale, he has the goal of becoming a royal guard. He really wants to become a royal guard. Now, he's really, and it's very clear, he's very determined to become one. To impress Undyne to become one. You also need a sharp object like a knife. But I mean, it isn't hard to find something sharp to use, so Papyrus could also get a blade of some sort. And if the knight Papyrus is working with Carol, he could probably just lend us. She could probably just lend him a sword, or katana of some sorts. Now, what motives would Papyrus have to be the knight and cause the roar? Well, Papyrus wants to join the Royal Guard in Undertale, so people will like him. Knights and guards are not the same, I know that, but knights and guards do have similarities. A knight is a warrior that fights in battles or acts as law enforcement for a sovereign of or lord. A guard protects a certain place, person or household, so there are similarities. And Carol, being a sort of ice queen of sorts, could be seen as the queen that Papyrus, as a knight, is fighting for. So Carol would be his sovereign or lord. Now, the knight seems to be working with Chris and Carol, and is opening up fountains to cause the roaring. Why would Papyrus do that? Well, I'll get into that a bit later. But yeah, opportunity. We don't see Papyrus anywhere in the game. So he has all the opportunity he needs to go around creating dark fountains. As far as we know, he doesn't seem to know anybody besides Sans. So he has enough time on his hands to create dark fountains, and shown up in chapter 3. As for the behavior, because the knight, as you can see by this shot, is aura farming, and the knight in a lot of shots seems to be trying to act cool, you know? And Papyrus is cool. The knight is constantly aura farming, so seemingly to look cool. Papyrus is a cool dude. Also, both of them can fly. Like, Papyrus, for some reason, near Snowdin, flies off into the sky, into one clip. It's really random, but apparently he can just do that. Yeah. Now, I will say, it is just more of a dad in Undertale, but still. He has the capability. And, yeah, Papyrus wants friends. He wants to be, and he thinks that looking cool and being cool will help him get friends. So, this could mean that explain why he's aura farming and became the knight, because, I mean, let's be honest, the knight looks sick. But why open the fountains? Well, going off on the idea that he is working with Carol, he probably doesn't know what's going on completely. We don't know Carol's goal for sure, but I don't think she'd have told Papyrus the entirety, because Papyrus would probably not be up for destroying the entire world. Now, we assume her goal has something to do with Des. Maybe bringing Des back to life. Again, I don't know for sure what the goal will be, but I believe that will be revealed in later chapters. Now, Papyrus seems to be a very lonely guy in Undertale. Not so much in Undertale as in Deltarune, but in Deltarune, he doesn't know anybody. In Undertale, he had friends. He had his brother, he had Undyne. But apart from that, think about it. Who really liked Papyrus? I mean, us, of course, me. I'm a big Papyrus fan. He's my favorite Undertale character. But, yeah. And I guess Flowey, you could talk to Flowey. And that's what I want to talk about, because Flowey hanging out with Papyrus was able to manipulate Papyrus in Undertale. So, Papyrus, being extra lonely in Deltarune, would leave him very vulnerable to manipulation. Just think about it. The only person he knows is Sans, and Sans is a bit too busy boning Toriel. So, Carol should show up, see this random guy that just showed up, moved to town. He doesn't know anybody, he's lonely, and use him. Papyrus maybe believe in their friends. Now, as for the music, I'll play. If I can find one, I'll put a clip up on it. Because Papyrus, just the Dating Tense theme can be heard somewhere in the Night theme, which is pretty interesting, but it's also the song that plays during Papyrus' date. Now, fountains reflect their creator. The look of a dark world depends on two factors: the area the fountain is created in, which contains items, and the area the fountain is created in, and the will of the creator. Top Chef is a spin-top Italian chef who baits cakes. First off, a chef is not the same as a baiter. He says Mamma Mia instead of Mamma Mia, which is like a wrong, incorrect form of Italian. Papyrus doesn't know how to properly make spaghetti in Undertale. It could be that Papyrus just doesn't correctly understand Italian culture. This could be a great foreshadowing of Papyrus being the knight. Now, the Forgotten Man and Jaster. From what we've gathered, they seem to be separate characters. Papyrus is connected to Jaster. I'm not going to explain that. I feel like most people accept that already. Now, there is an edge in Undertale in Papyrus' date section, which connects him to the Forgotten Man, with all the eggs. So either way, this connects Papyrus to the Forgotten Man, which is also pretty interesting. Some people theorize that Papyrus is the Forgotten Man, which could also be the case, but I find this to further Papyrus' importance in Deltarune, which should be used as more evidence for him being the knight. Now, what would be another reason for Papyrus to be the knight? Well, we never got a Papyrus fight of him going all out. The thing is, Flowey mentions in Undertale that Papyrus is actually a lot stronger than he looks. He's capable of bringing you down to 1 HP without killing you. Which Toriel, who cares a lot about you, isn't, and is a boss monster, is not able to do. And also, if the whole moving sprite means they want to kill you more than in Undertale's correct, Papyrus is standing completely still, not moving an inch. That could be that he's holding back, like, a lot. And another reason is why I just want him to show up is, well, he's my favorite Undertale character. And a lot of others as well. And the thing is, it kind of reminds me of a quote from Donner Kid. The quote from Donner Kid in Undertale, where you can imagine a world where everything is exactly the same, except you don't exist. This kind of makes me sad, because this Papyrus seems to be a lot lonelier than in Undertale. And I feel like that's what made him actually a pretty ideal character, to be the knight. Taking the most beloved character from Undertale and turning him into the bad guy. I feel that has a lot of potential. Here are some of my sources. And listen, even if I'm incorrect, proven incorrect, even if Papyrus turns out not to be the knight, or maybe he's the Forgotten Man, I don't care. I will always bet on Papyrus Knight. And if I end up being wrong, I don't really care. Theorizing is about having fun. So, with that being said, goodbye.